Welcome to the eCommerce Badassery podcast, the place for scrappy entrepreneurs who want to learn actionable steps and strategies to grow the traffic, sales, and profit in your e-commerce business. I'm your host, Jessica Totillo-Coster, a 20-year retail veteran and former brick-and-mortar boutique owner who spent 3 years as the only employee of a 7-figure online store. That shit was crazy. I know exactly how it feels to do all the things, and I'm sharing everything I learned the hard way so you don't have to. I may have started this business by accident, but supporting badass bosses like you lights me the fuck up, and I am so stoked to see you grow. Are you ready, babe? Let's roll. Welcome back to the eCommerce Badassery podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Totillo-Coster. What if I told you that the way you're talking about your products could be the reason you're struggling to grow your business? Not your ad strategy, not your not pretty enough website, not your pricing, your messaging. Last week, we talked about why people buy, how they're not just purchasing products, but solutions, status, identity, and transformation. If you missed that one, episode 319, go back and listen because it was packed with insights on how to make your brand irresistible. And a couple of years ago, on episode 247, we talked about product positioning, how you can take the same product and present it differently to attract totally different audiences. There was a Shark Tank example I gave about flood prevention bags that doubled as self-watering garden tools. Same product, different positioning, new customers. Today, I wanted to kind of dig a little bit deeper on both of these concepts because even if you've nailed your positioning, you understand buyer psychology, your messaging can't stay the same forever. Consumer behavior shifts, trends come and go. Economic changes impact spending habits, and if your messaging doesn't evolve with them, you're making it harder than necessary to get the sale. So today we're going to dive into 3 simple but powerful tweaks that will help you keep your messaging fresh, relevant, and effective, stay top of mind with your customers, and increase sales without having to change anything else about your business. Look, I get it. You've spent time refining your brand messaging. You know your ideal customer. You've crafted the perfect tagline, created beautiful social media content, and you've built up a solid email strategy. But truth is, what resonated with your customer 6 months ago might not resonate today because what people care about shifts. Sometimes it's because of the season, sometimes because of trends, and sometimes because of bigger outside influences. In the product positioning episode, we talked about how the way you frame your product can change throughout the year. If you sell kids' products, you probably typically market them to parents. But come holiday season, you might want to shift your messaging to target grandparents looking for the perfect gift. If you sell an item that's great for van life, that messaging might not make sense in the winter, but come summer, you can make it front and center. And those are just seasonal shifts. External factors like the economy, viral trends, or major events can completely change what your customers prioritize. And if your messaging isn't evolving, you might get left behind. For example, a high-end candle brand might usually market their product as a luxury home essential. But in a recession, that messaging might not hit, right? We're not really thinking about luxury home essentials at that time. So instead, this high-end candle brand might want to pivot their message to say affordable self-care. A jewelry brand that typically markets its pieces as statement accessories for special occasions might shift to everyday, effortlessly chic pieces when customers are being more mindful about spending or when they're not really going anywhere, like back in those COVID days, right? We were talking about looking cute from the neck up on your Zoom call. So instead of making jewelry feel like an extra, it now feels like an essential part of their daily wardrobe. A gourmet coffee brand that prides itself on premium small batch roasts might adjust its messaging to highlight cost per cup savings compared to buying coffee from a cafe. If consumers are cutting back on $6 lattes, positioning at-home coffee as a smart financial decision could keep the product desirable and potentially open you up to more customers who weren't buying from you before. We're not changing anything about the product. What we're changing is how we position it in response to what your customers care about right now. So let's talk about the 3 ways you could adapt your messaging without reinventing everything. Because there's a common misconception that adapting your marketing means a complete overhaul, new branding, new product descriptions, new website, the whole 9 yards. But that's not true. Small intentional shifts can have a big impact. So let's break down 3 easy ways to tweak your messaging so it stays relevant without creating a massive workload for yourself. Because I know, baby, you ain't got time. Shift the pain point you are solving. A lot of times when sales slow down, business owners panic and assume their customers no longer want their product. But that's not always the case. More often than not, it's not what you're selling that's the issue, it's how you're framing it. The problems your customers have today might not be the same ones they had 6 months ago. Take a skincare brand, for example. Maybe in the winter, your customers are hyper-focused on hydration and preventing dry, flaky skin. But once summer hits, their biggest concern shifts to lightweight formulas, SPF protection, and products that won't feel greasy in the heat. If you are still leading with deep hydration in your marketing when your customers are sweating through 90-degree weather, your messaging is not going to hit the same way. But by shifting your focus to summer-proof skincare that keeps them fresh and protected, you're aligning with their most urgent needs in that moment. This doesn't just apply to seasonal changes. Maybe your audience is in a celebration mindset, weddings, graduations, holidays. How do you position your product as the perfect purchase for that moment? It's all about shifting the reason they buy rather than changing what they buy. Number 2, use customer language, not just your own. This is one of the easiest ways to keep your marketing fresh. Use the exact words your customers are using. Yes, I know you've heard me say this a lot, but that's because it's so important. After spending 25 plus years selling women's apparel and accessories, I can tell you that most times, the simplest message is actually the most powerful. And I see it a lot with jewelry especially. One of the most compelling selling points, it's not the materials, the design, or the fact that it's great quality and going to last a long time. It's about how it makes women feel put together. I've seen this pattern over and over in reviews and customer conversations. Busy moms and women on the go aren't necessarily buying that necklace because it's sterling silver or handcrafted. They're buying it because it does something much more valuable. It makes them feel like they made an effort and like they have their shit together, even when they're just wearing sweats and sneakers. These women are juggling a million things. They don't have time for elaborate outfits, but they still want to feel good about themselves. So what do? They throw on a simple pair of earrings or layered necklaces with their basic tee, and suddenly they feel more intentional, more pulled together, more in control of their day. It's that magical transformation from I just rolled out of bed to I actually put some thought into how I look today. That's what they're after, and it takes literally seconds to achieve. And this logic can be applied to almost any accessory, really. It was the reason why we all wore scarves in the late 2000s, early 2010s. This is why paying attention to your customers' actual language is so damn important. While you're over there talking about metal quality and design inspiration, they're telling you exactly what's motivating their purchase. That feeling of having their shit together, even when life is chaotic. So I want you to go dig through your customer feedback. Look for those emotional benefits they keep mentioning that you might not be highlighting in your marketing. Those gold nuggets of customer language are worth their weight in, well, gold. If you're not sure, export your reviews and feed them into ChatGPT. Ask it to pull out the best bits. Review platforms like Judge Me are adding internal features to summarize your reviews for you with AI, and then it'll show it to the customer. So go check and turn that on if you've got it. Ultimately, just figure out the real reason they're buying your stuff and make sure you're speaking to it on your website, in your ads, and your emails. The third way to keep your messaging fresh, find the sweet spot between consistent evergreen content and timely messages that tap into your customer's current mindset. I'm a huge fan of evergreen emails and content. They're the workhorses of your marketing strategy. They're reliable, always relevant messages that you can continue to use over and over. They save you time, create consistency, and stop you from constantly reinventing the wheel. And this is likely what you're going to use in your email automations. But don't forget to layer in what's happening in the customer's lives right now. Your customer is not living in some timeless vacuum. They're experiencing seasons, holidays, life transitions, cultural moments. Their priority and needs shift throughout the year, and your messaging should reflect that. I know we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but it bears repeating. For example, back to school season is approaching and you sell home organization products. Your messaging should not be the same as it was in early summer, right? Instead of a generic declutter your life message, you can pivot to something like create a homework station that keeps everyone sane, where everything has a place and assignments get done. Or let's say it's January and people are in full-on New Year, new me mode. If you sell planners, organizers, anything self-improvement related, or anything that leads to some sort of lifestyle shift, your messaging should lean into that mindset. And you can say something like the system that turns resolutions into reality when everything else has failed. Even if your product is the same year round, the context around it and how your customer feels about it changes. So this isn't about scrapping your evergreen content or stressing yourself out with constant new campaigns. It's about being intentional with a layer of timely, relevant messaging that speaks to where your customer is right now. Maybe that's just one extra email a month that ties your products to the current season, holiday, or cultural moment. What you're really doing is showing your customers you understand them, that you get what's on their mind right now and how your products fit into their current reality. And when customers feel understood, they're much more likely to buy. So take a few minutes to map out the major moments in your audience's yearly cycle. What's happening in their world in January, in June, during back to school, before holiday shopping kicks in. Then create a simple plan to address those moments in your marketing without abandoning your solid evergreen foundation. Your customers will notice the difference and your conversion rates will too. So let's do a quick recap. What are the 3 easy tweaks to keep your marketing message fresh and effective? Shift the pain point you're addressing to match what your customers care about right now. Use your customers' actual language instead of just focusing on product features. And balance your evergreen content with timely seasonal relevance. What I love about these strategies is they don't require you to change your products, rebuild your website, or spend a ton on new marketing materials. It's about making small strategic tweaks to how you talk about what you already offer. Remember, your customers are constantly evolving. Their priorities shift, their challenges change, and what matters to them today might be different tomorrow. When your messaging evolves with them, you stay relevant, relatable, and worth buying from. So this week, I want you to pick just one of these strategies and implement it. Maybe update a few product descriptions using your customer's language. Send out an email that addresses a timely pain point. Start small, test it out, see what happens. If all of this sounds good, but you're not sure you really understand your customer deep enough to execute on this, I invite you to snag the AI Brand Brief. It's a tool I created to help you leverage AI, not just to create content that sounds like you, though we go pretty deep on that too, but to take a deep dive into your customer and the positioning of your products. We're making AI do the work. This has been a huge hit. Students have been loving it. I'll stick a link in the show notes. And that, my friends, is a wrap on this week's episode. If you've loved this episode or any of my episodes, please share the show with a biz friend and leave a review. Thank you in advance for your support. As always, thanks so much for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you on the flip side. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you want to learn more about growing your e-commerce business, get started with my free resource library at ecommercebadassery.com/free stuff and get an invite to the Lounge, my e-commerce marketing membership. When you're ready for one-on-one support, apply to work with me at ecommercebadassery.com/apply. Before you go, would you do me a quick favor? Leave a rating and review and tap that follow button. This pushes me up the chart so I can support more scrappy e-commerce entrepreneurs just like you. I'm on a mission to reach as many as I can, and I could really use your help. Thanks so much in advance. Until next time, e-commerce friend, stay badass.